Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Y'all, I am recording this late on Thursday. It'll be coming out basically shortly after I finish recording. And I am at the start of another one of my little adventures. So I am at the top of a multi-day visit, 2 miles, and couldn't see him today, in part because I was spending time seeing Luna, David Bowie, Jilly, and the rest of the crew at the Cape May County Zoo. It was really great to get back there, not for the podcast, just for John, and spend some time with the oldest red panda in the country, and David Bowie, who honestly is one of the handsomest red pandas in the country, and Jilly the cow, and all those amazing animals you heard about back on my episodes from there. So yeah, it was a really, really good day. And now I am recording Zoo News tonight before heading off to see Miles the next couple days, and then head down to North Carolina for my Sun Records live show at Theater Raleigh. So I'm really hoping to see some of you there. And yes, I will be visiting some facilities in North Carolina, including some you've heard from before and a new one. So I'm excited about all of that, and I'm sure y'all are as well. Now, I do like to share some personal stuff at the top of these episodes. And, Zoe sent me a video this week for Zoo News. It was a video of a baby hippo yawning and wiggling its ears. Now, don't get me wrong. I watched it and it was absolutely adorable. But I didn't see anything newsy. So I read the caption. I even went into the comments, and there was nothing that made sense for Zoo News. So, I had to ask Zoe what was going on. And so this is the conversation that ensued. So why did you think the thing that you sent me was Zoo News worthy?
Because hippos yawn and then wiggle their ears.
But that's not like Zoo News.
Yes, it is.
How is that Zoo News?
Because hippos yawn and wiggle their ears.
But we knew that.
But it's really cute.
And you think the world needs to know?
Yes. I feel like I explained this before.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't recording you for my podcast. So let that serve as a friendly reminder that, first of all, you could be being recorded at any time, especially if you are with a podcast host. But also let that serve as a reminder that you can contribute to Rossifari Zoo News by sending me any Zoo News-worthy stories, even if they're not actually all that Zoo News-worthy, cough, 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 cough. And I'll say your name at the end of the episode, whether they make it in or not. So that's really exciting. I honestly had enough stories this week where I think I could do a second Zoo News episode this week. Just births and deaths alone. It's like there were so many. So I selected a bunch, but if you don't hear your story, it might make it next week, or it might have just fallen into the abyss of too much Zoo News. But hey, I guess that's a good issue to have, except for maybe the deaths. But yeah. So with all of that said, let's get to it. All right. So speaking of births, we're going to start there. And we're going to start with the Perth Zoo, which has announced a new arrival, a Goodfellows tree kangaroo, Joey. Woo! This Joey was actually born a while ago, as happens with marsupials, but is just now able to be announced because the little one is finally visible in Mum's pouch. I don't have more to say about this, really, but I wish I did because I really, really love talking about tree kangaroos. Don't y'all worry, though. We're going to have an episode coming up soon that has some of that little teaser. Anyway, moving on. The Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society has announced the birth of a new slothlet. The mother, Wilbur, gave birth in front of Kelly Fadd, the general curator at the zoo, and immediately took to being a great mother. As with most things in their lives, sloths will give birth while hanging upside down, and Wilbur immediately reached down, scooped the baby onto her body, and started helping the little slothlet nurse. Congrats to Wilbur, congrats to Kelly, the curator who got to see a sloth be born, and to the whole team at the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society. The Living Desert has announced the birth of a giraffe calf, Girafflet. Despite the mom, Vicky Lou, being a first-time mom, she is very attentive and allowed the baby to nurse within the first hour of its birth. I'm always amazed at how quickly baby giraffes just become giraffes. It's like right away, and I get it. They have to. They're really, really tall and really, really yummy. I assume I've never actually, eaten giraffe, but to the predators out there, they're really, really tall and really, really yummy and pretty darn helpless at that age. So yeah, it all makes sense, but it's always amazing to me to see that. And then finally, in births this week, this is a really big one, y'all. The Prague Zoo in the Czech Republic has announced the first ever birth of a pangolin pup in human care in Europe. Now, this is a huge deal as breeding pangolins in human care is considered incredibly challenging. And a lot of the discussion about whether a population should be taken out of the wild to help preserve the species hits a major roadblock when confronted with the fact that breeding the species has not gone well. And so what that means is we'd have to keep taking animals out of the wild. Now, as most of you know, animals are generally not taken out of the wild for good zoos anymore, especially AZA zoos, unless there's a reason to, unless they are, injured, deemed non-releasable, that kind of thing. However, there is precedent of taking an insurance population out of the wild and trying to breed it and make sure that an endangered species doesn't go extinct. And there are some pangolins in the U.S. That are mostly living behind the scenes now. I think the only place that you can actively see one now is Brookfield Zoo. Used to be that you could at the Memphis Zoo as well. And then some other zoos like Turtleback and stuff had them behind the scenes. But I think pretty much now the whole breeding program is at Brookfield. And they're trying to make it, a thing. But yeah, it gets to a really interesting place. If you want to take a couple animals out of the wild to preserve a species, it's a fair discussion to have when you're talking about literally the most trafficked animal in the world. However, if you can't breed them, it's not a great conversation, right? So hopefully this will be a breakthrough that can at least open up a dialogue about whether breeding pangolins in human care is a viable strategy to help save, again, the most trafficked species in the world. So, we got to do something, y'all. And then that brings us to our deaths for the week. And man, there were a lot this week. Like I said, I had to leave some out just for time. But it's actually crazy how each one of these animals has like a really amazing story. So we have to start this section this week by saying goodbye to Walnut, the white-naped crane who lived at Smithsonian's National Zoo's Front Royal campus and who passed away at the age of 42. Walnut is possibly the most famous white-naped crane ever, in large part because she chose a particularly surprising mate. Now, you may remember we talked about this on the pod before, but after trying multiple matches who she always attacked and wanted to stay away, at least the ones of her own species, she chose her one keeper, Chris Crow. Now, that's Crow with an E at the end. They didn't hire a bird as a keeper, though I guess that would still work for being called a bird keeper, but I digress. Anyway, Walnut went on to consider Chris to be her mate for just shy of 20 years. Walnut was actually really important genetically, as her parents were both non-releasable wild-caught cranes, so her genetics were not represented in the SSP at all. When she took a shining to Chris, he went all in, mimicking courtship behaviors in the species, including flapping his arms in front of her, bringing her food, and supplying grass and leaves to her for nest building. Once this worked, Chris was able to artificially inseminate Walnut using sperm from a male crane. In total, the couple gave birth to 8 chicks, with the fertilized eggs being given to other weight-named crane couples to raise as their own. And if that story isn't amazing enough on its own for you, it's made even more special by the fact that the median life expectancy of a white-naped crane is 15 years, meaning that Walnut almost tripled the expectancy that she had for her life. That's apparently what life expectancy means. Good job saying that well, John. Anyway, that is absolutely incredible. I'm sending all the love to that incredible team for the amazing work they do, especially at this time of sad loss. What an amazing story about the lengths zoo professionals go to for both the individuals in their care and the species they protect as a whole. The Hertfordshire Zoo has announced the passing of Panja, a beloved snow leopard who had lived at the zoo since arriving from the Czech Republic in 2013. Panja was a bit of a celebrity in the UK and honestly around the world, where he and his mate Jessie became social media stars that could be seen on a CCTV feed. The couple were known for being very playful out on exhibit, but also for exhibiting tender moments when they were alone in their den, in which the couple became very cuddly, which is just so adorable. Panja will be greatly missed by his keepers and his global audience. Next, we say goodbye to Ingo the flamingo. Ingo lived at the Berlin Zoo until his passing at the age of 75. Or actually, to be more accurate, at least 75. See, what happened is when he arrived at the zoo, a ring was on his leg with a date. The ring was dated from 1948. Now, sometimes when flamingos get rings, it happens right away when they're born, and sometimes it doesn't happen until later in life. So it's technically possible that he was even older than 75. Now, to be clear, a flamingo in good health in a zoological setting can make it 20, maybe even push 30 years. But 75? That's astonishing. The death was attributed to old age, shockingly. He will be missed, but what an amazing life. And then last but not least in this section, the El Paso Zoo has said goodbye to Savannah, an Asian elephant who was 71 years old. Sadly, Savannah suffered from arthritis, which had stopped responding to treatment. And what a treatment it was. Over the years, the team developed a plan that included stem cell therapy, multiple oral pain medications, oral joint supplements, and even injectable joint supplements. But in the end, the treatment wasn't working and her quality of life was just too bad. So the decision was made to euthanize her. Sending condolences to the team. Now, I think it's amazing the work that team did. But you know, we've been talking a lot about death, and so I'm going to share a story just to lighten the mood a little bit. So, I guess it just seems weird to me that there's a lot of death in this section of the podcast dedicated to, I don't know, animal deaths. But anyway, the story is this. My grandmother, who was also dead, but hey, whatever, used to call arthritis Arthuritis, with the pause and everything, as though it was someone's name. She would say things like, "Jonathan, that nasty arthritis is acting up again." always got a chuckle out of me, and I hope it got one out of you too. And now we move on to the rest of our Zoo News section of Zoo News. Okay, get ready for a rant, y'all. So, every year, I share with you the results of the USA Today polls for Best Zoo Exhibit, Best Safari Park, and Best Aquarium. Although I don't see that one this year, so I don't know, maybe I missed it, but I did search and I don't see it. But this year, I'm not here to tell you the results right now. I'm coming in early to let you know that the voting period has begun for these utterly meaningless but also fascinating awards. Zoos that make the list earn bragging rights and can use it for marketing, which is great for them. However, I do feel the need to point out, as I do annually, that it's just a popularity contest. Some zoos ask voters to vote every day, while others just don't. For instance, in all the years I've been tracking this, I've never seen the San Diego Zoo ask people to vote. And I've also never seen the San Diego Zoo rated the best zoo in the country. Since the vast majority of people just vote for their local zoo, this contest is far more about that than it is any comment on the overall quality of any of the zoos involved. And this year is extra weird for me because of some of the zoos that are and aren't nominated. So I'm going to run through the list for the best zoo nominees quick to make my point here. All right, so in alphabetical order, we've got the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, our friends Brevard Zoo, Central Park Zoo. Okay, and here's my point already. Look, I love the Central Park Zoo. When I'm in New York City for gigs, it's almost always the most accessible of the WCS zoos for me, and I go every time. It's great, but it's really small. It's frankly not even the best zoo in New York City, which is home to the Bronx Zoo, which is not nominated. When people ask me the best zoos I've been to, I always list San Diego, Toronto, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Bronx towards the top of the list. But not only is Bronx not on there, but its smaller and less impressive, though still thoroughly wonderful, brother is. This would be like if Taylor Swift's less talented sister, Enid Swift, got nominated for a Grammy and Tay-Tay didn't. Look, I'm not saying Enid isn't great. She is, and I love her blend of techno and hip-hop with ragtime piano. But come on. And no, Enid Swift doesn't exist. But my point does. Is this supposed to be like the hipster list of best zoos? And again, I'm not trying to crap on Central Park Zoo. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to be there right now. But it's just weird to see it make this list when the Bronx Zoo missed. That's my point. But anyway, okay, moving on down the list. Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, Cincinnati Zoo, Honolulu Zoo, Living Desert, Louisville Zoo. Surprised to see that one on there, but it's a really great facility. Nice to see that one on there, honestly. The Minnesota Zoo, the North Carolina Zoo, Oakland Zoo, Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo, Rolling Hills Zoo. Wait, what? Who? Okay, so here's another zoo that is on this list that has me scratching my head. Apparently, this zoo lives in Salina, Kansas, and it is an AZA-accredited zoo, so that's awesome. I went to their website, and they have tigers and lions, snow leopards, all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, so actually, this may be a truly great zoo. I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to lie. I want to go and see it. But again, I doubt it's a better zoo than Bronx, and it's not on the list. Neither is the Columbus Zoo, and I doubt it's better than the Columbus Zoo. So I was surprised to see a name that I don't know and I've never heard from any of my zoo friends before. But I want to come see you, Rolling Hills Zoo. So, like, again, please don't be insulted. I hope I'm not burning bridges with this. I'm just trying to make a point here. But yeah, the list goes on with St. Louis, San Antonio, San Diego, and then gets to Seneca Park Zoo. Again, another truly wonderful zoo that I love to visit, but it's not the Columbus Zoo. It's not the Bronx Zoo. I was going to say it's not the Toronto Zoo, but these are the best zoos in the United States, and I realized how stupid that would sound, but you get my point. Anyway, this list ends with Woodland Park Zoo, Zoo Boise, and Zoo Montana. So first, and despite my cynicism here, I truly, truly mean this. Congratulations to every zoo that is nominated. But also to those listening who have a grasp of the different zoos across the country, do you see why I'm skeptical of this entire process? Some of this stuff just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Too many amazing zoos that aren't even in the running, and too many head scratchers for me to take it seriously. But of course, I will be letting y'all know the results because it is still newsworthy. And while I won't run down the list of best safari parks that are nominated or the zoo exhibits right now, I will say that those lists have some head-scratching entries as well. For instance, the Great Ape House at the National Zoo is listed as one of the best exhibits in the country. And look, I truly love the Smithsonian National Zoo. I actually know a couple of keepers in the Great Ape House, and I love it. I've even had the privilege of spending time behind the scenes there, and it is amazing to see the work they do and the bonds the keepers have with their animals. But one of the top 20 nominated exhibits in the country? I don't think it's one of the top couple exhibits at the National Zoo. So yeah, my point here is feel free to vote for any of this stuff if you want to help your favorite zoo have some promotional material and bragging rights, and I'll let you know the winners when they are announced. But I feel like I had to let you know what the process looks like so that when the results do drop, you understand what you're seeing and what you're not seeing. Also, talking about just kind of what's going on this week in general, there have been a lot of predictions happening this week. I had a lot of you send me stories of specific zoos doing one of the two following things, and it turns out that a lot of different zoos did them. So rather than cover the individuals, I'm just going to say that if you are interested in seeing zoo animals pick the winner of the Super Bowl, which is coming up on Sunday, man, all you got to do is hop on socials and you will see a whole lot of different animals picking either the Kansas City Chiefs or the San Francisco 49ers. And going along with those predictions, this week was also Groundhog Day, and more zoos every year are choosing to have their own animals see if they see their shadows and make a big deal out of it. And, most of these zoos don't have groundhogs, so they use different animals. There are all kinds of different ones, but it makes for some cute viral content. So if you want to go check that out, again, go check out just any and all zoo social media pages, and you will probably find some animals picking the Super Bowl winners and some animals telling you whether we're going to have a lot more winter or a quickly oncoming spring. The actual groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, did say that spring will be coming early this year. So I don't really believe in rodent prognostication, but in this case, I'll take it. All right, so this next story comes to us from the Big Cat Sanctuary in Smarden in the United Kingdom. You know, good old Smarden, known to us all for, well, according to its Wikipedia page, it has a butcher shop. No, seriously, that's one of the things on the Wikipedia page of Smarden. It says it has a butcher shop, not like a famous butcher shop. Just they have a butcher shop. That's one of the things that made Wikipedia. It's a very boring Wikipedia page. But they also have the Big Cat Sanctuary, which is decidedly not boring. The sanctuary is home to Zaya, a female snow leopard cub. Now, back in the middle of January, keepers at the zoo noticed that Zaya was often keeping her left eye closed. Snow leopards are notorious for having issues with their eyes, both in the wild and in human care. When her eye was open, keepers noticed that it was discolored, which they spell with an unnecessary U because the story takes place in the UK, but we still love them. Anyway, when the vets examined the eye, they immediately started her on a treatment plan of pain meds, antibiotics, and eye drops, which had to be administered 6 times a day to a snow leopard. And this is why training is so important, y'all. The treatment plan seemed to work well for a while, but then the condition started to worsen, at which point the vet team stepped in again. Under anesthesia, the team discovered that her left cornea had a significant amount of infection in it, going as deep as the middle of her eye. While this would normally lead to removing the eye to save the animal, the team actually believed they might be able to intervene surgically in a way that would save the eye and even preserve the snow leopard's sight in the eye. The team created a graft from a healthy area of the cornea and then set the graft aside, as one does, I suppose. They then removed the infected tissue from the front half of the cornea and then went in deeper, removing the tissue in the center of the eye that was infected as well. When this was done, they patched the eye with the graft they had made and secured it with 40 stitches. My mind is blown at this incredible effort. And I know what you're wondering, which is, well, did it work? We don't know yet. We truly don't. Samples of the infected tissue were sent to a lab where it was discovered that it was fungal in nature, which could lead to issues even if all of the infection was properly removed. Zaya is still receiving intense medication and eye drops to help with the healing, and now the team and all of us wait with bated breath to find out whether the surgery was a success or not. Either way, what an incredible effort for this little snow leopard. A flight attendant on an Alaska Airlines flight recently helped save some zoo animals. A zoo official was transporting some Chilean flamingo eggs from Zoo Atlanta to Woodland Park Zoo, and they realized the incubator had stopped working. Unsure of what else to do, the official hit the call button, and when the flight attendant showed up, she asked her what they could do to keep the eggs warm. The flight attendant went to the gallery, found some rubber gloves, and filled them with warm water. These were wrapped around the eggs, and guests sitting around the person from the zoo chipped in, offering up coats, scarves, and hats to keep the eggs warm. Now, this story happened months ago, but it is only now getting publicity because the efforts worked. The flamingos have hatched at Woodland Park Zoo, and the flight attendant was invited there, where they got a private tour of the zoo and a meet and greet with the chicks they saved. The zoo even named one of the chicks Sunny after the granddaughter of the flight attendant, who also got to come and attend the zoo tour day. So what an amazing story all around. We recently discussed the birth of an okapi at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Well, they have announced the name of the little okaplet, and I think it's worth sharing. He has been named Elijah after a member of the horticulture department at Animal Kingdom who has worked at Disney since 1973 and who started at Animal Kingdom when it opened all the way back in 1998. Elijah the human is in charge of maintaining all of the habitats at Animal Kingdom, and now Elijah the okapi is named after him. I just love this little story. You know what they say. An okapi is a wish your heart makes. Or something. Our friends at the Naples Zoo have announced that their new Alligator Bay Boardwalk is open. This is a brand new area that makes visibility for the 3 p.m. alligator feedings way better for the guests. Now, I know people have been missing those feedings while this remodel was done, so this is really exciting news. And hey, if you're newer to the podcast, please make sure you go back and listen to my episode with Vittoria Vitari and Scott Johnson of the Naples Zoo, where you can hear all about the incredible alligator feeding and even my thoughts watching from behind the scenes. It was pretty intense, y'all. Zoo Atlanta is cashing in on 2 crazes at once, and you can get a cool shirt out of the deal. They have announced a limited run of a Zoo Atlanta The Panda Bears shirt, modeled after Taylor Swift's Eras Tour poster and merch. The limited edition t-shirt starts at $48.99, with hoodies and other fits available at higher prices. These things are selling incredibly fast, so hop onto the Zoo Atlanta socials to secure yours. And then last but not least, in the Zoo News segment this week, the Smithsonian's National Zoo has announced an interesting naming contest. There are 2 new residents at the small mammal house, cotton-top tamarins. They came from another facility and are adults, but this isn't a renaming thing. Instead, you can help name these monkeys for the first time because they came from a facility where they were not given names. There are actually still zoos that don't name their animals, even in the AZA, I think that it makes them seem more like pets than wild animals if they have names. While I'm not, 100% sure that that's the reason that the tamarins here were not named, it is possible. But I'm telling this story in part because, hey, naming contests are always fun, but also it's worth mentioning because the zoo has gotten a good number of negative comments on the contest announcement on social media, saying that zoos need to stop renaming animals when they travel from facility to facility. And that is not what is happening in this case. I did think it was interesting to see the pushback, given that y'all know how much I hate that practice. It seems like there may continue to be growing pushback against the whole renaming thing, which I'm, for gently, nicely stopping that. But in this case, the National Zoo is not doing that. So feel free to go and vote for the names you want with a clear conscience. Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring it to conservation news. Late last week, federal wildlife officials rejected a proposal to restore protections for gray wolves across the northern U.S. Rocky Mountains, stating that hunting should be allowed as the species is not in immediate danger of extinction. Now, the Fish and Wildlife Service did say that they will start work on a first ever national recovery plan for wolves, which should be ready to go by the end of 2025. In rejecting the proposal, the government stated that the population of gray wolves in the area stands at around 2,800 individuals with a good amount of genetic diversity, so there is no need to protect them. And while that is true, those numbers are true, good genetic diversity, very good, the numbers are only that good because there previously were federal protections for wolves, which were instated after the species nearly went extinct in the exact same area. So basically, the government is saying, hey, this thing we did totally worked, so let's stop doing it immediately and see what happens. This is especially disheartening as states in the area have been allowing more hunting permits and increasingly aggressive measures, including trapping, snaring, and even extending hunting season from just a few weeks to multiple months when it comes to wolves. This is a big loss for the wolves that had just recently bounced back to acceptable population levels. Now, I love to wax philosophical in this section about how little we know of the world around us, how much is still to be seen and discovered. But I have to admit, even I was taken aback by this story. A baby great white shark was recently seen by some scientists who photographed it. And this is the first time anyone has ever photographed a baby great white. In fact, it's the first time there has ever been a record of anyone even seeing a baby great white shark. Crazy. And to be clear, the correct term for this animal is great white sharklet. No, I'm kidding. The truth is, it's actually just called a white shark. There is no such thing as a great white shark, at least according to science, but that's what most of us know them as, so I had to lead with that terminology. Now, the sharklet in question was pure white, unlike the adults, which are gray on top and white underneath, and it appeared to be shedding the pure white layer. The only proof that we have had that white sharks reproduce at all up until now, other than, the population of white sharks, is dead ones that were discovered in deceased females that had died while pregnant. So this is important not just because it's the first discovery of its kind, but because understanding mating habits and birthing of white sharks, and even figuring out where they give birth, has long been considered the holy grail of shark scientists, a group of people who clearly need to get out more. This discovery may be the first step in finding said holy grail, thus potentially making these shark scientists the Indiana Joneses of the shark science world. And the 27th annual Backyard Bird Count, sponsored by Audubon, will be running from February 16th through the 19th this year. This is a great citizen scientist project that really helps ornithologists get a feel for what conservation efforts are needed to protect the birds of the world. You can sign up to help by going to birdcount.org.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
Sometimes the headline really is the whole story, and this is the headline for this story. Chernobyl's mutant wolves have evolved anti-cancer abilities. I mean, that's the story. To give slightly more context, the population of wolves living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, the area that was affected by the nuclear disaster that occurred in Russia in 1986, have apparently developed protective mutations that increase their odds of surviving cancer. These wolves are just one of many animal populations that have blossomed since humans abandoned the area around the disaster for fear of, massive death from nuclear fallout. It is noteworthy that these animals are surviving and thriving, as most of the species are about as well equipped to handle radiation poisoning normally as humans are. I guess you could argue that this is scientific proof that humans are literally more toxic to animals than radiation, like nuclear fallout. Think about that for a second. Yikes. But yeah, so the fact that these animals are doing well is what brought researchers to the area, trying to figure out how these animals are doing the thing and living in such an uninhabitable area. The studies show that the wolves are exposed to 11.28 millirem of radiation every single day, which is over 6 times the legal limit for human workers. And yeah, take a second to realize that means the government has decided that it's perfectly acceptable for workers to be absorbing, some radiation every day, just as long as it's not too much. The same government that is constantly moving towards the deregulation of large industry. But hey, I digress. While the wolves of the area are the main focus of the study, other animals have adapted genetically to survive in the area, including the hundreds of feral dogs that live there and have been shown to be genetically different than the dogs found in the rest of the world. The hope of this research is that the knowledge can be used to protect humans from cancer, but that is obviously still a long way off. Still, it's nice to know that when the world descends further into madness, and we mostly die off as a species because of a stupid nuclear war, at least the small populations we leave behind will probably be better protected against cancer. Because really, at the end of the day, what would be worse than surviving a nuclear holocaust only to have to go full Heisenberg to pay your oncology bills? And yes, this scenario only works if you assume that while most nations will have fallen during the nuclear holocaust, the American healthcare system will have survived. But I mean, hey, we've all been told that cockroaches survive a nuclear holocaust, haven't we? And last but not least this week, we've talked about the fact that many zoos will let you symbolically name a cricket, roach, veggie, or something else that is edible after an X, and then have it fed to an animal. Well, this year, some shelters and dog and cat rescues are taking this concept to a whole new level. Why feed an X to an animal when you can symbolically spay or neuter said X? That's right, these facilities are letting people pay the price of a spay or neuter to have it done in the name of their X, which is some really incredible marketing. I am all about this level of pettiness when it leads to helping to control the feral cat and dog population. So if you'd like to symbolically spay or neuter an X, or maybe just a podcast host who has dropped one too many jokes into his Zoo News episode this week, find your local shelter that is taking part in this initiative and get it done.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, so February is many animal months, including National Bird Feeding Month, International Hoof Care Month, Fishing Cat February, and Adopt a Rescue Rabbit Month. Then for our individual days, we start with February 10th, which is the Chinese New Year, and this year is the Year of the Dragon. February 11th is the Super Bowl, which is also known as the Superb Owl Day. The 13th is Love Hornbill's Day. The 14th is Valentine's Day, Zoe's birthday, and World Bonobo Day. And the 15th is National Hippo Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another week of Rossifari Zoo news is done, and that means I didn't die getting in the Atlantic Ocean today where it was very cold. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can see the video I posted on Instagram. It was very cold. But I'd like to say thank you to my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, and Jenny Owens. I'd like to say thank you to all of my patrons and remind you that you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this week's Zoo News episode. Anya Keene, Colleen Lenehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Laura Schenk, Sam Evans, Amanda Berg, Matt Patford, Ashley Volkins, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Mary Blair, Karen Musklow, Jay Meredith, Liz Dunleavy, back from England, Elizabeth Charles, yes. Marianne Rossi, Stephen Rossi, Barbara Bennett, who really came through in a pinch because I forgot to bring my Peppermint Narwhal Animal Holidays calendar with me, and she won a copy in a recent contest through Rossifari and was able to provide me a picture of the animals, so that was very helpful. Thank you, Barbara. And of course, Ali Malensky and Kay Malensky. The Malenskys en Espanol. I say that because they are in Mexico right now, according to their social medias. I hope you don't have stalkers, ladies, because if you do, well, I sent them to the country that you're in. But don't worry, I won't let them know that you are in Puerto Vallarta because that would round it down. Ooh, sorry. Anyway, the words, news, and credits backwards are Steider-Kiswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.